Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the continuation of the public hearing that we started last night at our regular scheduled meeting. Everybody join me for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Anybody who would like to speak, you're more than welcome to come up.
Are you going to start with the articles, or what are you?
I mean, we can go article for article, or...
Why don't you start with the operating
Okay.
budget? That's the first one.
Okay, we'll go article for article.
Article for article.
Guess so. All right. First article under discussion would be the Article 3, which would be the operating budget. Anybody like to comment about the operating budget?
For those at home, you might want to give them the numbers. Do you want to give them the numbers?
I can.
And then default.
Yep, the proposed number for this year's operating budget is $7,464,993, and the default number $227,983. Comments or discussion? Dick? Yep.
Good evening. Unfortunately, there was no information on the town website for the warrant or the operating budget. But the police department did have their operating budget posted. And looking at the police department operating budget and the information in the handout tonight, there's a discrepancy. I just want to make sure which one's correct. The operating budget for the police department shows that, posted on the website, I got it tonight. I'm sure you don't have it in front of you. It shows that the proposed budget for the police department and the default budget are identical. It shows that wages for the police chief, which were approved by the Board of Selectmen, and wage increases for some of the police officers, which were approved by the Board of Selectmen, not approved by the voters, are included in the default budget. So I'm assuming the budget on the police department's website is incorrect.
Well, the police officers' pay raises were approved by the town because it's under collective bargaining. That was done, this is
Oh,
their
no, I
last,
understand that.
this is
I
their last
understand-
year.
No, I understand that. But this is the 2022 budget. There's no collective bargaining agreement
No, but
on the warrant.
collective bargaining went for 3 years, so their raises were incorporated for this year. This is their last year under that.
2022?
Yep,
This is the last year.
this is the last year for their pay raises. Under the collective bargaining, it was a 3-year contract.
But the raise for the police chief was not part of the collective bargaining agreement, obviously, and
That's correct.
it appears that it's beyond the 3% that was given as part of the employee raises. But but if you looked at it, both the proposed and default budgets are identical. So, and I don't think that's the way it is on the budget prepared by the finance administrator. No, his default budget on his website is 1,802,213. That's not correct, right? I'm assuming
No.
what's here is correct.
Right.
Yep.
So I would ask you to ask the chief to correct that or remove it from the website, because it's misleading. It's incorrect.
Okay.
The titles on the top look like they got switched.
Oh.
One more thing on operating budget, I guess. So is that confirmed that it's incorrect? or-
Yes, the handout is correct.
Okay. You had spent out of surplus $277,000 a few weeks ago. And I'm just wondering, of the $277,000 that was spent, how much of that was reduced in the proposed budget? You know, there were items purchased at the end of the year. Were any of those items that were purchased now not required to be purchased in the 2022 budget?
I believe the answer is no.
Did Benji
Not all
reduce
of them.
his?
Not all of them.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
the-
Benji
Yeah,
did.
the $10,000 for the transfer station fix, he reduced his, because it was gonna be
Yes.
in the proposed, Benji's, for the $10,000.
Okay, there was money in the proposed budget for it?
There was
In the
money in the
proposed.
proposed to do some renovation to the transfer station facility, office, bathroom. He reduced it because the board gave him money at the end of the surplus. So he reduced that. So that one was reduced.
On the proposed side.
Right. Should that have even been in the proposed budget? This sounds like more to me like it's part of the government building and maintenance fund. It's kind of unusual to put those types of capital or repair expenses in the proposed budget. Anyway, so any of the items that were purchased by the police department, which I think amounted to about $50,000, tasers, et cetera, none of those, all of those, his 2022 budget doesn't reflect any of those things that were purchased a few weeks ago.
He's shaking his head no.
Why is that? I mean,
Because the budget hasn't passed for 2 years. I can't get on life cycle management until the budget passes.
I understand that, but they were indicated as being critical. If they were critical, you could have prevented him or you from approving any of those items during the course of the year. I mean, it didn't take much to figure out with the few offices that we didn't have, there's going to be a budget surplus in his department at the end of the year. It's not unusual in a particular case where bottom line responsibility, a department head would come in and make a request for an expenditure, even though the line in his budget doesn't exist or is underfunded. So why weren't those things, requested during the course of the year if they were critical? And you're waiting till the end of the year to purchase them. To me, those items should go into the 2022 budget. It just, the numbers kind of match up. What he requested as part of his proposed budget and what was purchased at the end of the year, the numbers seem to match. 5 tasers, et cetera. Anyway, so nothing that you purchased, except for the $10,000 for the transfer station, affected the 2022, reduced the 2022 budget.
Proposed
That's the
budget.
Huh?
The proposed
Proposed
budget,
budget, yeah.
yes, it would have.
Okay. Well, unless I think of something else when I sit down, that's about it.
Thank you, Dick. Kyle, Frank? Frank? Okay.
If I can accommodate you to start with. The fire department budget, coincidentally or well-planned, I'm not quite sure, never figure it out, at least the last couple of years, this year and at least last year, maybe the year before. The default budget and the proposed budget are the same. And I can't for the life of me, and I know it's probably, I can't for the life of me look through the fire department budget, and I know it's probably not one single line, but the article, as we will come to, I probably should wait for that article, and you can stop me if you want me to wait. But I can't find where the budget is reduced. It's probably not in one line, I would assume, but I could be wrong. So maybe somebody can tell me just give me a few examples of where the budget is reduced.
Did you have one of the books from Beth? If you look at it, Frank, there's in the column that says increase, decrease, proposed versus approved. There are places where, like, fire health insurance, it was, reduced. And it shows it has a reduction in there.
Protective clothing, physical
You know-
immunizations, anything in parentheses.
It's all reduced.
Already, yeah.
It's reduced the budget.
But then other things
Get
went
that
up.
later.
Frank, may I come up there and show you?
No, I'm also, just tell me what page to start on.
That's on page 12.
Page 11.
Page 12.
Page
Okay,
12.
Page 12.
Yep.
Okay, so, right, and I know what the parentheses mean.
Yep.
So all those parentheses should add up to about whatever the article will read, reduced by,
So, just so we're clear, you're referencing the warrant article to the budget, not
Well-
specific, not these lines, but the warrant article
For the total.
to the budget.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So,
okay.
okay, just want to make sure we're all on the same page, because obviously, we've been doing this a good number of years. I'm sure you know what the parentheses mean versus,
Yeah, I did, well, I quite honestly, I didn't connect the dot, those
Okay.
couple of dots, to say the reduction was attributed to the, what the article states, the budget will be reduced by. Okay. And I guess just my comment on the budget overall, it's already been alluded to that I tried to get a hold of Beth to get a firm number, but I don't know what the total surplus was for last year. You did spend $277,000. I did, actually, one piece that I asked for Beth, it was dated the 10th that she gave it to me of this month, and it's the budget versus actual expenditures. And on the last page, I know you don't have it, it shows total operating budget, the amount remaining, the column of amount remaining, and it might be in this spiral binder, I'm not sure. It is well, if you allow me to round it up $500, it's $192,000. So I don't know, because I wasn't able to contact and get an answer. I don't know if that is less, the $277,000, or I guess obviously it wouldn't be inclusive of that, or else it would be a higher number. So that's actually what you had left over. And that goes in the general fund, and, well, some of it may be expended through the warrant. That goes in the general fund with hopefully an anticipation that it will be added to monies in the general fund to reduce my taxes next year.
I'd say it's a fair assessment.
I mean, I know it's looking a year ahead of, well, it's at the end of this year. Okay. Okay, that's all I have for that, and I'll wait for the article. Okay, thanks.
Could you tell me if you've given any raises to any employees in 2021?
Yes,
You have?
yes.
Who are those? Where would I find that? Because have you announced it publicly at a meeting?
I don't,
No.
no,
Why not?
no.
Why not? You've done it before. You've given raises to people, and I'm not questioning whether they're justified or not. But don't you think you should at least notify the public that we've given a raise to employee A, and this is the reason why, and this is how much? The only way we find it is by comparing the proposed budget against the default budget, see if there's any difference in the lines. But if you're looking at a department, it's hard to figure out how much, or if any money has been given out. So who have you given raises out to during the course of 2021?
Administrative assistants,
Able.
couple of officers. Just one officer.
One administrative assistant.
One administrative assistant, that's right.
And then we have new hires that
And
came
new
in
hires.
higher than the,
Well,
Right.
The new hires came in 21 higher than what was left.
Yeah, that's all right.
And fire would have to answer that question. Board of Fire would have to answer questions on the fire side.
Right.
Fine. But why don't you make those announcements? Are you embarrassed?
No.
What, why not?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
I think you should. You know, and again, I'm not questioning, you've given raises to the finance administrator. Significant raises, which I think are justifiable. Given raises to the Director of Public Works, which I pushed for. But you never made a public announcement. And I think you should. It's a disservice to those employees, in my opinion.
Anybody else for the operating budget? Okay. Move on to the next warrant article. See the non-union raises, 3% to non-union town and library personnel, totaling $62,377, estimated tax impact 5 cents.
Frank Campana again. In regards to the raises, how was the 3% determined this year? I know last year it was determined by two things. First, Selectman Meany said that that's what the police were getting, and it's not fair for the non-union people to have something less. They could have gotten more, would have been all right, but you don't want to give them any less. And if you recall, the Social Security increase was like 1.2%, I think, 1.123%. So how was, the other, how was it determined to 3%? As Selectman Burdick presented that article last year in defense of the 3%, she said people are hurting. So are people hurting just as much this year to warrant them the 3%? So how was that determined?
Again, following what the police are getting, to keep them at the same pace. They're getting 3% in their contract, so same thing to be fair across the board.
Okay.
I know that's been tossed about the cost of living adjustment for Social Security recipients. And that and it was stated by yourself that we should keep in line with it.
Yeah.
I guess this year we could keep in line with it and bring it up to 5.9%.
I was waiting for that, that's right.
But we didn't.
But keeping in line with that,
But that's, these people are the ones that are putting into that system so you can get your cost of living adjustment. They're still working. They're not collecting off of that. They're working and putting money into that.
well, because
fund.
I've done my time.
You've done your time,
Okay.
but they're also helping to fund a program that isn't really being funded that well, except for the
Well,
people that are working.
that's, you know, that's a different.
Well, it's still within the same economic
So when you
ballpark.
when you mentioned the 5%, they could have gotten 5%, and that's great for them, but when last year was 1.5%, you didn't go downhill, you didn't go down. So
You don't go back, you
You're
go
only
forward.
justifying the increase, and this year's increase is supposedly an anomaly, okay? And which begs my question, as I probably asked last year, that if it's in line with the police contract, if the cops get, when their next contract, if they do an average of 5% a year, all right, so the town employees are gonna get 5% a year, right? Because you want to be consistent. You don't want to change the non-union people. So that remains to be seen. Okay, so I'm all
But Frank,
set.
we may give them 5.9 next year, cost of living. We just do it a year
Well-
later.
Well, that could be, yeah.
Got another question?
Just a comment? Yeah, I will, I'm on my way. I've got to make sure that I get the approval. When you mentioned the 5.9, I wish I had it to hold up in front of you, but my deductions, all right, amounted to, of that 5.9% increase in the overall Social Security, it mounted to a moderately hefty amount. So that got eaten away.
Well, theirs
And,
get eaten away with the same thing. They put into the fund, Social Security,
I
it
get it.
goes into the retirement fund, it goes into, Medicare and which,
I get it.
so they actually end up with less. They're lucky if they get probably 1% when it's all said and done.
But you're talking about people, as we talk about these specific town employees, you're talking about people that are making, 70, 80, 90, $100,000 a year,
They work
I
for it.
don't, I understand that, Jack, I understand that, all right? Yeah, I'd be satisfied with.
Gross
having it.
probably showing me, I probably earn close to that
Yeah.
personally, but I got
and-
nothing to show for it, and I don't get raises.
Yeah.
I'm a retiree, I haven't even gotten, I just got a cost of living one, and it's been over 10 years, and it was 1.1% cost of living adjustment. In over 10 years, in a
Well, you should
retirement
use that
system.
as a model then.
No, because it's a crime.
Yeah.
It doesn't keep up with anything with the cost of
Oh,
living.
I get it, okay, thanks, thanks again.
Frank. Anybody else for Article 4? Move to Article 5, library wages, raising $6,047 for a $1 increase per hour for the library staff. That represents 9 months. Cost is half a cent on 1,000. Go ahead for Article 5.
Frank Campana again. That increase for the library folks, again, I'm not questioning, justified or not justified, but what I'm wondering is the inconsistency, all right? And the inconsistency comes that this article is on the ballot, and it gives every person that goes through the voting booth a chance to weigh in, to say yes or no. That's my issue. All right, it's already been stated here tonight that the Board of Selectmen, and I can show you a budget printout sometime before I leave tonight. This is November 1st of '21, 22, and it references the '22 police budget. All right, the first two lines, police chief salary, a $1,500 increase. All right, and it's noted on here, and I appreciate the honesty and transparency of the notations, the reasons for, okay? It says raise for Board of Selectmen. Where was I? For you, give me the opportunity to say yes or no. And the same for the wages for officers, raise $11,000. Raise, again, I'm not questioning the raises, what I'm questioning is the process that you have eliminated. The raise for those folks are $11,000 per Board of Selectmen, okay? Why are you folks working towards, and in fact, actually, when the Parks and Rec came in to present their budget, she had I don't have that one with me, I think it was a 1% raise for the workers there. And you, Rick, again, it's not a question of should it be or shouldn't it be, but you, Rick, you asked her, and I think you used the word consistent. I'm not sure, all right? But it should, instead of being in the budget, it should be a separate warrant article, which it is, okay? So, I'm going to say you can't have it both ways, but you folks sure do have it both ways. Right? Whatever is near and dear to you folks in departments and expenditures, you do on your own, all right? And exclude the taxpayer. And that's not right. But there's more of a history over the last few years of things not being right as opposed to being right. Okay? And that's it. Thanks.
Just one thing.
Good.
Again, with the employees at the police department, that was voted on. That was voted on by the taxpayers as the collective bargaining. So that was in there, and it was brought forth to the taxpayers. And you voted on it, and it was on the ballot.
Well, I don't know why it's indicated Board of Selectmen.
For the police chief.
No,
That was-
he's talking about
And I don't
officers.
think that, I don't.
It's just when you moved
Yeah.
one, you moved one up a level
Yes.
Yep.
for
Yep.
level
Right.
of responsibility,
That was
you
us.
gave him.
Yeah.
Yep, that
One
was
got
us.
promoted, he got money.
He was
Absolutely.
promoted and took the responsibility.
But their overall raises came from the, Collective
Just to
bargaining.
continue on the police department with the
We're not on the PD.
Oh,
wages
we've
that
already-
were approved. Why,
This article is for
The
the
library.
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 I thought we were just talking about the
No.
police department.
no, he's clarifying something that he kept saying, the police raises, as Frank brought it up. No, it was voted on by the,
Well, just to continue on that then, you did bring it up, as an example maybe, but there is a difference between the proposed budget and the default budget for the salaries for the officers, which means that they were given raises that weren't approved by the voters. And when I mean weren't approved by the voters, that they were included as, they were done, say, when you had a default budget, still a budget, you gave them raises, and the following year, you didn't get an approved budget, you got a default budget, which referred back to the prior year. So they weren't approved by the voters, because they didn't approve an operating budget that included those raises that you had given them. So there is a difference between the proposed budget and the default budget. Whenever we see that in the salary line, that means something was done, and we weren't made aware of it, that you gave out raises to employees at some point in time during the course of the year, and they're not reflected in the default budget because you didn't get an approved, your proposed budget approved.
Anybody else for Article 5? Tom?
I'd just like to speak in favor of the article for library raises. Anyone who was here when the director made his presentation, and you could see that truly our library staff is underpaid by quite an amount compared to other towns our size. So I would be in favor of that article.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we'll move on to Article 6. Parks and Recreation, looking for $2,692 for the increase in the hourly wages of the returning Parks and Rec staff by $1 for each employee. Represents 1 year. If approved, become part of the annual budget, and it's 0.2 of a cent. Tom?
I would also be in favor of this article. Last year, I believe, there were no lifeguards at Chase Park. And I'm sure some of that is due to the low wages. I think that's terrible liability risk of the town not to have lifeguards on duty there. So I would encourage the board and the voters to go ahead with these raises.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Okay, Article 7, 2 full-time EMS staff. Shall the town raise and appropriate $91,103, taxes, benefits for 25 weeks, and one-time expenses. If approved, fire department operating budget will be reduced by $91,103, and this addition will become part of the operating budget. With the estimated annual cost of $180,700. Estimated tax impact, 0 this year.
Amazing.
What? This year. This year. Okay, Article 8, for the ambulance. Raise and appropriate $350,000 for one fully equipped ambulance to be funded by the Special Revenue Fund for the fire department equipment and vehicle. Tax impact, 0. Comments, questions? Okay, Article 9. Capital Area Mutual Aid Fire Dispatch, to see if the town will vote to join the Capital Area Mutual Aid Fire Compact. And need to raise and appropriate $21,060 for the purpose of 1/4 of 2022's membership. Again, one-time reduction of $11,152, and the estimated annual cost to be $84,237. Tax impact, 2 cents. Comments, questions? Tom?
This is kind of a follow-up to something that I mentioned last night. The communication issue has been so substantial as far as police and fire for so many years. And from everything that the fire chief has said, this is going to be a great improvement for the fire department. And as the board follows through with the other piece of this, will impact the police department. I know that that's not on the warrant this year now, but it's all part of the big picture of making sure that when these people are out there taking risks themselves, that they're able to communicate with others, both for their safety and for the citizens that they're servicing.
Thank you, Tom. Frank?
Well, I've listened to firsthand some of the discussion about the presentation by the fire chief for this article, and I'm a little confused by the last person's comment, and I would like the fire, if he wants to respond. What issues does the fire department have with the current provider, which is, as far as communications, which is Goffstown? What issues, well, it's kind of hard to answer, but would the fire chief presume or think through, or is he reassured by capital area mutual aid that the communications will be at least as good or maybe better? So, when a person stands up with this article and says, well, we have to have the best we can have, I haven't heard the fire chief really say that we may not have the best, but it's certainly, probably a little better than satisfactory. So that's my question, is, what issues does the fire department have with communications with the current provider? And is there any foreseen issues with changing? Again, I'm not questioning, his determination to change. It's probably some benefit to it, I would guess. So that's my question, is the communication.
Would you like to speak?
Not to steal the thunder from the Finance Committee, which we're going to speak to this on Thursday. So I guess the question for everyone is, in regards to the police department, do people understand that there's an issue with the radios? Right? What people may not know is we share the same system with the police department. So whatever radio issues they have, we have as well. So if they can't talk to dispatch, wherever they're standing, we can stand next to them and we cannot talk to dispatch either. The solution, as we discussed over the last 2 years, is to rebuild the communication system. And to rebuild the communication system to something that's the most effective or to what it should be, has a very hefty price tag of over $1 million. I would say we'll just throw out $1.5 million, because that's probably where we're at. For police and fire, and also DPW, because they share the same network, to rebuild that system so that we have an effective radio system. The fire department has an option, and the option is if we go to capital area fire mutual aid, then they have a radio network that already exists in a very effective radio network that surrounds us. It's in Dunbarton, it's in Henniker, Toppington, Deering, Hillsborough, up in Washington, and it goes all the way to the east to,
Northwood, Epsom.
yeah, Northwood, Epsom. It's very, very effective. So my proposal is, in lieu of whatever the fire department's portion would be to go to the new system, which is estimated between $200,000 and $400,000, is how about if we just change from what we're doing today and become a member of Capital Area Mutual Aid Fire Compact, or whatever the name of it is. And with that membership comes a dispatch center that it only does fire departments. It does 23 communities in the greater Concord area. And we get a radio system that has, it has a 12 antenna simulcast system. So that's more or less a turnkey operation for us. And it requires us to have a vote from the taxpayers to say, yep, we agree that you can join that. We could be up and running by the end of the year. And for the most part, that would solve our radio problems for fire. It doesn't do anything for the police because they don't dispatch police through that system. But, so they'll still need to have something done with the radio system. But the issue is the technology or the infrastructure that exists with the radio. And with that change, we also get a different dispatch center because that's how it works. And so we would not be dispatched by Goffstown Dispatch any longer. There's a price tag to it, for sure. And then what I have proposed is because we're going to have some retractions in the budget, so we're not going to pay for the dispatch contract that we have now. We're not going to pay for the radio maintenance contract that we have because, again, Capital Area owns the equipment, so they own it and they maintain it. We don't do that. That's part of our dues to the compact. And so those savings, coupled with some new money, which is this $9,000 net, allows us to go there in '22. And in '23, if the voters were to say yes to the final phase of the full-time hirings, right, there's going to be some further retractions or reductions in the budget that become available that we could pay for all of the increased costs that's associated with the fire compact. And so that we have a net zero tax impact, really, in '23. And we're just going to end up, ideally, move the money from this line to this line to pay for it. So I think it's time to do that. This was something back, certainly most of you in the crowd, maybe from 1990, there was a dispatch committee, back when Florence retired from answering the telephone. And that committee recommended that we go to Capital Area then. And we didn't do that because, frankly, Goffstown came in and lowballed we said we'll do it for cheaper. And so, 30 years later, we're here at the end of that ride, and we need to do something, and the police need to do something. And so what I'm proposing is that we're not part of that something that needs to be built, and the cost savings, right, that capital outlay is significant just for fire to be on that system. So it's an alternative to what we're doing today, but I think that the financial benefit is there to be realized in the future. And some of that is directly related to radio and communication, and some other stuff is related to, that regionalization concept of being in a much bigger compact that's very active and very robust. And I think that, I think now is the time to do that because financially, there's some things that's happening in the budget in the next couple of years that allow us to absorb that cost without really seeing a spike in expense.
There's also additional benefits to cap areas. They're not like hazmat and bariatric and,
Yep. So some of the other stuff that you get with you get the dispatch center, which is the most, visible thing. You get a radio system that's extremely robust. Not only is it robust in itself, but also it has a backup agreement with Lakes Region Fire, which is another big radio compact up in Laconia area, so they can seamlessly back each other up if need be, and that's happened a couple times. You get a chief coordinator, so you have someone who not only does a lot of work in the, office work to make the whole system work well, but shows up, if you have an emergency, he will come out and act kind of as a resource officer or coordinator of the mutual aid environment. We get a hazardous materials team out of central New Hampshire, that's part of that fee. Right now, we have a hazardous materials team that comes out of Nashua, if we need them. They also do they host the regional planning committee, which is also, the federal government requires local entities to have an emergency planning committee. Not very many communities do a great job at that, but being part of this compact, they take that burden off of the local communities by providing that service. And also the bariatric equipment that you talked about. It is not uncommon to find patients that exceed the weight limit of our stretcher and ambulance equipment to transport. And so there's equipment in a cache in Concord. And I think Hopkinton's one of the units that would assist us in loading and transporting someone who exceeds what we can do. And the nice thing there is it prevents us and the patient, right? It limits that amount of exposure to getting hurt as well. So they offer a lot. It costs more than what we're doing now. It costs about twice as much as what we're doing now. But I think there's a method to absorb that cost in our budget in '23 that, frankly, I don't think most people would see.
Thank you, Chief.
I'm trying to follow this. I'm kind of an AM guy, so, does this, what the chief just said, does that mean that the overall cost of this upgrade that we've been talking about for months and months and months is going to be less?
potentially.
Potentially a little bit, yeah.
And we don't know what that is,
Not exactly.
which is
no.
why it's not on the warrant.
And that's not the reason why it's not on the warrant.
Why is it not on the warrant?
I don't think we have all of our ducks in a row to get a positive result in bringing it forth to the voters right now.
You don't know what the cost is going to be.
Estimated between 1 and 300,000 for the fire side, depends on how the vote goes with Article 9.
I'm sorry, you said on the fire side?
Yes, on the fire side.
I thought he indicated, maybe I heard him wrong, that there wasn't going to be any major infrastructure
It's
changes.
possible there won't be. It's very possible there won't be.
If the
One saying
article is
300,
no,
and then another one saying,
So,
the article's no to this, the upgrade to the
Correct.
radio system is the additional
One-
$200,000 to $400,000 that he talked about.
it's a substantial amount
If
if
people vote
Article
no.
9 says no.
oh, if they vote no, if they vote yes, then
Right.
it's a
Yes.
different story.
Right, it's a different story.
Good story.
So it's not on the warrant because you really don't know what the cost is, you don't know what the scope of the project is.
For the fire
You're
side,
waiting
that's
for the
correct.
fire department to find out what happened there, and then the following year,
We'll see where this year goes, because we still have the $950,000 in
and
ARPA
you're
money.
able to expend that as long as you have a public hearing, it's a.
That's correct.
I hope that's part of the write-up
Could be.
for Article 9.
Could be. All right, Article 10. For one police cruiser, $71,013 for one fully equipped police cruiser. This will replace a vehicle that has already been retired. Estimated tax impact, 6 cents.
Yeah, hate to ask this question, but is this a fully serviceable police cruiser?
Yes.
Is it serviceable?
Yes.
Marked and everything.
Frank?
The wording, this would replace a vehicle that has already retired. I happened to catch, wasn't looking for it, but I happened to see part of a Finance Committee meeting, and one of the committee members asked, with the police chief, asked him about the makeup of the cars, And I believe that the part of the discussion, part of the response, was the vehicle that had already retired was an unmarked car that an officer of rank had at his disposal. Am I correct in saying that?
Command vehicle, correct.
Okay, all right, command vehicle. So when I read this here, it really sends a mixed message. I don't know how you try to correct it, if you want to try to correct it. But when I read replace, you're looking for a cruiser, and I think, I think last year's, it actually stated a front-line vehicle. I'll try to be a little bit better prepared for the, in fact, actually, I do have it. 2021. Previous,
Fully equipped frontline police cruiser,
right, article, it was Article
or 15.
15, right. Okay. So I'd encourage that be put in there, that wording put in
We
there.
can add that.
So be specific. But, so again, as I read this, the already retired, all right, I could interpret that to say, yes, I want this police cruiser because the vehicle that's been retired was a frontline police cruiser. And that's not the case. He said it was a command vehicle. So that's kind of misleading. I'm not saying intentionally, by any means, but that's a little misleading. I don't know how you would correct it. Maybe you just leave it out. But out of 10,000 people, I may not be the only one that could interpret it, that the car that is gone was a frontline vehicle.
So the car retired was a command vehicle, I guess, unmarked, probably lieutenant. Does that mean the lieutenant is going to get a vehicle?
Not necessarily, no.
You don't know. So this vehicle isn't replacing the unmarked vehicle in terms of its function. It's going to be a marked vehicle.
Yeah, it's going to be marked.
It's going to be a patrol vehicle.
Correct.
Frontline vehicle.
Correct.
And we don't know if there's going to be a vehicle given to the lieutenant.
Not at this time.
I couldn't hear that. Sorry.
You just,
I couldn't hear that. They were talking next door. What was the-
Is the lieutenant going to wind up with the vehicle?
So it's a command vehicle. We use the incident command system. Step up here. We use the incident command system, so you have your 5 patrol vehicles. And then if somebody of rank needs to go to a scene, take over the scene, that's what the command vehicles are for. Because they're a bit different, they carry different equipment for different responsibilities. Make sense?
but this,
Is
but
he gonna-
but this-
gonna have-
It's not a take-home car, if that's what you're
No,
asking.
no, I'm not asking that. I'm just wondering if the lieutenant vehicle was retired.
So it's not, yeah, that's been retired, but it's not necessarily solely the lieutenant's vehicle, just like mine's not solely the chief's vehicle. Other people use it. It's a command vehicle that we use for all kind of different
So you
functions.
have a command vehicle?
Mine's a command vehicle, yes. It hasn't been upfit as such, but it is a command vehicle.
All right, so,
It's-
so you
it's
shot
up-
one vehicle in the fleet then, is that correct?
Correct. I'm supposed to have 7, I have 6.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, sir?
okay. Article 11, skateboard park equipment, $5,000 for the purchase of 3 skate park features, 0.4 cents impact. 12, special revenue fund for the transfer station. Adopt the provision of RSA 3195C to restrict 50% of recyclable revenue expenditures to the purpose of the transfer station equipment and capital projects. Such expenditures shall be accounted for in the special revenue fund to be known as the transfer station recyclable special revenue fund, separate from the general fund. Any surplus in said fund shall not be deemed part of the general fund. Accumulated surplus and shall be expended only after a vote by the legislative body, if appropriate, to appropriate a specific amount from said fund for the specific purposes related to the purpose of the fund or source of revenue. That is a very legal, written article. At the end of the day, it's for improvements at the transfer station, such as if a baler goes down, we can replace that. Improvements to the building, the compactor, et cetera.
I understand what you're doing. I disagree with it. You already have an existing capital reserve fund. Why do we have to create another one for the same purpose? Very confusing. You have a transfer station equipment capital reserve fund. That capital reserve fund is approved by the Board of Selectmen for expenditure at any time during the course of the year. There's $65,000 in that fund right now. Outside of the fact that there's revenue coming in, you could tap into that. Why are we creating another fund for the same thing? It just doesn't make sense.
So you're suggesting to reterm and reclassify that fund?
I suggest you eliminate the special revenue fund that you're creating. And the problem I have with those types of special revenue funds, you get a continuous source of revenue coming in whether you need it or not. In 5 years, based on last 2 years of revenue coming in from recyclables, it's about 45,000, somewhere in the 40 to 50,000 range would probably be a good range. So you're getting half of that. So you're getting $25,000 a year. In 5 years, you have $100,000 in there, whether you need it or not. With the capital, and then you have to wait. If you have a baler that breaks mid-year, we have to wait till March to see if the voters approve it. The capital reserve fund, baler goes down, you get the money there, buy it, fix it. So I'd rather put money into the capital reserve fund than take money out of the revenue stream and divert it into another fund for the same purpose. It's just confusing, it really is. The other thing I'm concerned about is taking revenue, and instead of going back into the undesignated fund balance, which potentially could be used for tax rate, it's being diverted. It might not be a significant amount, but other ones, it does add up. I mean, over the past three months, you've taken 1.1, you either taken money out of the undesignated fund balance for tax relief, 600,000, or you've kept money from going into that when you took the surplus money of 277,000 and spent that. That means there's no money going to the into the undesignated fund. That money isn't. I think out of the surplus you're putting 80,000, $60,000 surplus. 80,000 is going to be rolled over into the undesignated fund. And then on the warrant, you're funding the 10-wheel dump truck in its entirety at $260,000. That comes to about $1.1 million that you've either taken out of the undesignated fund balance or you prevented from going into the undesignated fund balance to build that up. And this is going to be a general question that I have. What assurances do I have, or can you give me, or other people that may be interested, that the general fund balance is going to be healthy, even though we've done what I basically just described? Because it gets funded through surplus. So where do we stand? I'm looking at next year. Are we going to have sufficient funds in that unreserved fund balance, undesignated fund balance, to have money available for tax relief or in case of an emergency?
We'll know better when we get there.
Oh, come on. You got to do better planning than that. I mean, you spent it's basically $1.1 million. Portion of that 1.1 is money that you didn't put in, and portion is money you're taking out, and potentially that warrant article, which is probably gonna pass because of zero tax impact, it's, he's taken $800,000 out of the undesignated fund balance and kept 270 roughly from going in. I'd like to know that if you're using all that money from that fund, that fund is gonna be healthy. You should be able to kind of indicate whether it is or isn't. It's a valid concern. You gotta look a little bit further ahead than, a week.
Frank?
I'll let you know that the town will get a bill from me for your entertainment tonight. That article,
We should send
it raised $115,000 last year, 21, for the purpose of purchasing a trailer. Again, it's not a question of purchasing the trailer, the old one apparently 14 years old, the information. But along the same lines, the last speaker, sorry, I guess he's a voter. I have the account balances, again, thanks to the finance administrator, of July 7th of '21. And the highway equipment, transfer station equipment, there was a balance in there of $138,000. There's a parentheses pending transfers, which I asked her and she confirmed what I thought. There was a pending transfer of $72,400, and that was for the trailer. So out of $115,000, which you taxed me for, you had $40,000 left over, what you taxed me for.
Do you remember why?
Do I remember
Remember why
why?
there was a $40,000 surplus?
Because you
in
got a
that?
deal on the trailer.
Yeah, because of an error on their part.
They made a mistake.
They made a mistake.
Okay, well, I didn't, all I remember hearing about the rear doors, that they didn't have them and
No,
Okay.
no. No, there was an
Okay.
error on their side, and they stood behind their error.
Okay,
And that's why we got it for a song.
okay, all right. So, okay. Well, maybe it'll happen again. So, no,
That would be nice.
I was, if I was aware of it, I didn't remember.
Okay.
Because I was just gonna further my comment and saying, if it was that $40,000, that's why the balance is up to $65,000.
Very possible.
But that's immaterial now. It's a moot point, I guess. Okay,
It should not have been that high, but we lucked out here at the town.
right. So, and I remember several years back, I save this every year, either here or a deliberative session. Several years, well, I'll wait till we get to the truck. Okay, I'm all set. Thanks again.
Hey, Frank.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on to 13, which is the 10-wheel dump truck. Appropriate $260,000 for the purposes of purchasing a new 10-wheel plow truck, with the entire amount being withdrawn from the unreserved fund balance. Estimated tax impact 0. Frank?
Okay, I need to be clear on the wording first off. Where it says to be withdrawn, it's mentioning to deposit 260 into the capital, into the...
No,
it doesn't.
that changed. So you need to get rid of that one if you picked that up last night.
No, I picked it up tonight.
No, I don't know what we're doing.
17th, and today's the 17th?
It's not putting any money into a capital reserve fund.
It's purchased outright.
It's gonna be
Oh,
purchased
o-
outright.
Okay, well, I'll have to think about that. That might make it even better for me.
Okay.
So,
You got too many copies.
pardon me?
You got too many copies.
Well, but I have the latest one previous to this. I don't have...
Yeah,
the-
Yeah, but it's
that's
got a
where it's already
different date.
changed. Yeah, it changed in
Okay.
that one. Yeah.
So it reads, oh gosh, Well, let me take my time to reread it, see what the change is, and maybe you'll accommodate me to come back.
That's the way it should be, I believe, when you take money out of the unreserved fund balance. It should be not go into
Capital
a
reserve fund.
fund. Because
it
we
was
never
written
get
in
that money
error.
back.
It was
Because if
written
we
in
get the
error.
truck for
Sure.
220,000, we get
Human error,
$40,000 back.
and I admitted that, yeah. Can't do it both ways.
Sometimes it's very difficult to me to think on the quick. So the money is actually deposited in the unreserved fund balance.
Whatever was left
Yep.
at the end of the year
Or-
is there.
Pardon me?
Whatever was left is there.
The entire will be withdrawn. Oh, okay.
So right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. So, which leads me to another point, is now you've got an extra $266,000 in the unreserved fund balance that, again, didn't come back to reduce my taxes. I understand in a roundabout way, I don't have to foot at $260,000. I get that. But it didn't necessarily give me a chance to say yes or no. You know, and when I say a chance to say it, you know, when people see a zero, they say, well, it's not costing me anything. Well, it is costing. You know, we all know that. You know, whatever money you folks hold in your hand. So, my further on that, if I can find my stuff here, the $260,000, maybe I should come back. Yeah, I probably ought to come back. There's, again, that article, an article like that, there's still always money left over, and it will remain in the whatever is not paid out of the 260, it remains in the unreserved fund balance, which could come back. And that's okay, but if it doesn't come back, then it's costing me. All right, I remember several years back, Naomi had to explain to me a couple of times when we were buying a truck, we were buying it actually outright, okay? And Naomi would make the comment and say, well, if it costs less, I'm paraphrasing. If it
Hey,
costs,
I'm not offended at all.
if,
Go
if,
ahead.
it- no, and I try not to do that, but
No,
I'm sure I do
I
at
know how I
times.
can call you, so.
So my point is that if it's an out and right purchase, all right, we only get taxed on what the thing costs. All right? Then you started putting it in the truck and equipment capital reserve fund. If it costs less, which the two trucks last year, if I find my paper, the two trucks last year, I mean, the
We got nothing last
We got nothing last year.
the year before,
Okay.
all right, again, with the help of the finance administrator, she gave me the total, you know, the accurate, what the invoice was. Between the two vehicles, there was about $23,000 left over, which stays in that capital reserve fund. And I never get to see it, you know, and I never get to have the opportunity to say yes or no. Again, I'm not questioning, you know, the validity of the article. But what I'm questioning is my opportunity to weigh in how I want to spend my tax money, not how you folks want me to spend my tax money. All right, to have that total control. So that's partially, you know, is satisfactory to me, but not totally.
Article 13 or 14?
14.
We're gonna go 14.
14.
Okay. All right, Article 14, medium-duty truck replacement. Appropriate $95,000 to be added to the previously established capital reserve fund for highway truck and equipment for the purpose of replacing one fully equipped medium-duty highway vehicle. Estimated tax impact 8 cents.
Was this a 95, it was higher, and when did it got adjusted down?
Yeah, because if we're gonna put the money into the capital reserve fund, we're gonna use some of the
Some of the
surplus
money
that's
that's in there already?
Yeah.
About $58,000.
40.
40,000.
Yeah.
Oh, so shouldn't you put the total cost on there, though? That's typically how it's done.
We don't know what it's gonna actually be.
So we're gonna, we've got a quote like we get every year,
I know.
and then when the CIP was presented, it was $135,000, and Benji presented to take 40 out of capital reserve,
Yep.
which dawned on me later. So that's why we reduced it by the 40, so that you're gonna add just 95 into that.
So
And
money's going into a capital reserve fund.
95, we lessened what's going into the fund, because there's already money in there.
Okay, I always thought you had to put the total appropriation, and then you would indicate where the money was coming from. 40 from the
But I
cap.
don't have to raise 40,000 if I already got it, right?
Yeah. Well, it would indicate to me that
Because the
the
agent to
total
expend is
cost
the
of the,
selectmen.
it would indicate to me that the vehicle cost $95,000. That's not the case. I thought every time we had using another source of revenue for an item, we always put the
Well,
total.
typically, if you're going to take it from a fund to buy it, but if we're writing it to place it into a previously established account,
I know, but it says
it's
you're
just,
purchasing them.
it just makes
I know.
3 or 4 more sentences that makes more
If you're
confusion, I
just
think.
doing it to put money into the fund, I can understand that. But you're doing it with the express purpose of buying a vehicle. And usually you would indicate what the cost of the vehicle was. That's all. I mean,
Splitting hairs, yeah.
whatever works.
Yeah.
Else? Okay. Article,
Can I ask you guys something, everybody's all done with them too?
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you guys to put on the warrant, whatever number, I don't care, put under 13. I'd like to ask for another 10-wheel, ask the voters to get me another 10-wheel dump truck with, raised by taxation, obviously. Try to catch me up. But this one, I'd asked for one out of the medium truck and this one at CIP. Well, I had asked for this first 10-wheeler at CIP to come out of ARPA. And we decided to take it out of this, which is fine. But that was last year's truck that we didn't get, if you want to look at it that way. And then I wanted to get a medium-duty truck and another 10-wheeler this year and ask the voters. Put it on there, let them weigh in on it anyway.
and you're looking at a full year before you can get it anyways, right?
Yeah, when I got these quotes, which was a couple months ago, it was 12 months out for the cab and chassis and 7 months out for the equipment. So all these trucks I want to replace are going to plow the rest of this winter, which just started, and all of next winter before I even get them. So
Yeah.
we need to get back in rotation because I didn't get one last year. And I don't know what would hurt to ask the taxpayers. They don't want to even get a vote for it, but I'd like to at least put it on there and
Would it be the same dollar amount, 260?
be the same dollar amount.
It wouldn't take much to craft that up, would it?
No, I guess we talked about it a little bit today.
Yeah.
Beth and I and Benji talked about it a little bit today, is I think you need to put it close to the other one so that it's easily explained. You don't want to have somebody put it at Article 5 and then Article
12.
12.
Or whatever.
And they're gonna say, Jesus, I already saw this.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're not looking to confuse anybody,
Right.
but
To put it
I think
right
it's
here.
easier explained if you made it 14 and just bumped your numbers by 1 and put it underneath each other. I think it's easily explained.
Now, you did go through finance or CIP?
Yeah, we
He's-
presented all this to
Yeah.
Finance, CIP, and that CIP presented this to you guys.
Okay.
But finance also has been down and toured his facility and his equipment, and I think there's a change of
I had
heart
very
there.
good support town-wide, and you know, if I got the two, then next year I'd go, I've always said since I've been here, I was gonna ask for one big truck and something else with Public Works, and asking for two just tries to get me back to one I didn't get last year, and it's worth a shot. The voters can vote no. I mean, but yeah, that's how we presented it to you guys, finance, CIP, everything. So just to, you know, for a minute, didn't want to ask for too much, but if you don't want it, you don't want to vote yes either.
I'm okay with changing Article 14 to read very similar to 13 and just bumping everything else down one,
Out of taxation.
out of taxation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so make another article.
Make a second article separate from 13 and 14.
Yep. Yeah,
I think,
probably,
yeah.
probably would hurt.
Well, the other thing I think
make a
is,
motion?
Ben
Yeah.
said, because we didn't get a vehicle last year, the price has gone up 30,000 in 1 year on a truck.
Yeah.
So if we gotta wait another year to get one anyway, and
Well, I
if
think
it
once you place your order, you got your number.
locked in.
Yeah.
We
But
got our
with-
number, but it's still gonna be 18 months before you get it on the road
And he's got
with a
30.
town seal on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, at least.
At least.
and they've looked at his equipment. They went down and took a look at it.
Does that need to be in a
Yeah,
motion?
probably need a motion.
Okay, go for it.
Make a motion that we add an additional article and move the articles down and make this article, and I'm proposing Article 14, to have the town raise and appropriate through taxation a sum of $260,000 for the purchase of a new 10-wheel plow truck for the highway department. I don't know what the tax
Second.
impact will be, but we can put that on
We'll
there.
figure it out,
Impact to be figured out. Second.
Second.
roughly. Moving seconded, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay.
So can we discuss that?
Sure.
I just, from a packaging standpoint, you're gonna have a vehicle here for zero tax. And the same vehicle over here that's gonna cost $250,000. I don't know if it's worth considering splitting the 260, 130 offset for each, for both vehicles. I don't know. It's
Oh, I see what you're saying.
it's tricky.
I see what you're
He's
saying.
looking at
You're almost-
splitting 130.
You're almost
Think that-
guaranteeing that the one that's gonna cost 260 for true taxation is gonna fail.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
I hate to say
understand.
it that way.
Yeah, we understand what you're saying, though. Yeah, we get it.
You got a thumbs up in the back of the room. Benji.
Tom?
I wouldn't do that because he might not get
It'd
it.
be more confusing, and then he may end up with neither.
Neither, and he needs it.
I feel a word of caution on this. If you recall the year before last, when we had two different articles for two police cars, and neither one passed. So I think what you're opening it up to is the possibility that some people will vote for one, some people will vote for the other, and both articles will end up failing. So I'm just saying that with the experience we had with the police cars, I felt at the time that if they'd both been in the same article, I know that'd be a hefty article with the amount of money for two dump trucks, but I think that they would have had a better chance of passing, because I could just see people say, well, yeah, I'm gonna vote for one, I'm not gonna vote for both, and so some vote for Article A, the other vote for Article B, and neither one of them passes. So I think that that's a real concern you should have in putting these two trucks in two different articles, because can't predict the future, but I think that could happen again.
Thanks, Tom. Frank?
Benji mentioned the opera money. I didn't even think to ask it at one time. I was provided a copy of the capital improvements plan, and one of the last pages is, total dollar amounts for everything. And for the trucks, Benji had asked, I believe, for two, but there was a notation, there was one total dollar amount for the whole plan, with the one truck being funded by taxation. There was another final dollar amount with a second truck provided by, Benji had mentioned, funding through the ARPA. So I know you want to keep all the money you can for the communications, even spending budget year-end surplus, for the two antennas anyway. But what happened to that? Was that something that was deemed not applicable by guidelines of the ARPA, or you just decided not to?
That's the thing, we don't have clear-cut guidelines that say, yes, a plow truck, dump truck, whatever you want to call it, would be applicable under ARPA. It would be a gamble on our part, and if we fail and the feds come back to us, then I have to come back, or the feds are going to come back and say, okay, you got to pay back that money.
Yeah.
It's too much of a risk, whereas the communications is not a risk.
Yeah. No, I get that, I understand that. I'm just wondering what happened to the truck. So did you get Is that just your own personal feeling?
Yes,
That it
that's
might be,
That's the board's feeling. Because of the guidelines that the Fed set forward.
Yeah.
Again, there's always that possibility that they could say, once the check is cut, they review it, they audit it, and they go, that doesn't apply,
Okay.
don't pay, then we're on the hook to come up with
so
200.
apparently there's no means of getting a firm commitment
No,
that,
no. It's a federal
Okay.
From the
government.
federal government?
Yeah, it's a federal government, there's no way. Yeah.
yeah, I get it. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Frank. Okay, we'll move on to Article 15, which is the road reconstruction, the reoccurring. Total amount be $575,000, $281,000 approximately be anticipated to receive from the state highway block grant, with $294,000 to be raised by taxation. Estimated tax impact 23 cents. Discussion? Okay. Article 16, Master Plan, CRF. Shall the town vote and establish a master plan update capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35-1 to begin funding the update for the master plan and to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be placed in the fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen agents to expend from said fund. Estimated tax impact 2 cents. I think our last update to the master plan was 2005. So it's long overdue. Article 17, Cypre, $10,000, zero tax impact, comes from the cemetery trust funds, Cypre account. Article 18, for the forester, $30,000 to allow the Conservation Commission to secure contractor services as a licensed forester. And contract to purchase materials and services for maintaining the upkeep of town forests, and the fund appropriation by authorizing withdrawal of that sum from the town forest account. Zero tax impact. Request from the Conservation Commission to designate town-owned parcels, map 408, 129, containing 19.53 acres, and map 401, 117, containing 31.94 acres of conservation land to be managed by the Weare Conservation Commission. Now, I question that because we asked for clarification on that as the board, and we haven't got it yet.
Right, because they canceled their meeting, but I did speak to the person that was the spearhead to it, which was the vice chair. Mm-hmm. And I asked him what advantage or why 408, 129 was thought about, and the thought was that it could be the entrance to something bigger later. Fully understood where we came from, meaning that I believe that's got driveway access over that for at least 2, maybe 3 houses. And then he said that that wouldn't work well with conservation. So I guess one person's opinion, because they didn't meet, is he, I guess, was okay with us taking off the 408, 180, 129 for the 19.53.
I was gonna recommend that.
So in other words, remove the article.
So you're gonna do the
No,
designated
no.
town parcel with just the
No, we're
one?
gonna keep this one.
Just the one. There was two lots on
Just
there.
gonna take the one off
So
the
just,
top line.
because you looked at map 40117, and that does make it continuous.
That's
Yeah, that's up by
continuous.
Chipmunk Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one up by there, okay.
Right, so the lot, map 401, lot 117, 31.94, that's actually, that links
Mount Wayne
up.
Pond.
No,
No,
this 31.9 acres is the one that's
that one is
continuous.
not- Yeah, that's a contiguous that leads up to,
Chipmunk Falls
Falls
and,
thing.
and that, the Barden piece we just purchased, et cetera, so that makes sense, the other one did not. So,
So we're gonna take that out?
we're gonna take that second lot out.
you're gonna just
No,
leave
the first lot.
the first
The
lot.
first lot, or whatever,
Well,
I mean, I keep saying second
I
lot,
know,
but,
I know.
The
all right, I
town
just wanna make
parcel,
sure
I don't
we're
know
all
about
out.
that.
so.
So we'll be having these reprinted again.
Well, you're gonna have to sign it, and it can't say across the middle, you guys haven't signed this, you'll sign it next Monday.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Article 20, all veterans tax credit. Shall the town adopt the provisions of RSA 7228B for an all veterans tax credit? If adopted, the credit will be available to any resident, spouse, spouse or surviving spouse of any resident who, one, served not less than 90 days on active service in the armed forces of the United States and was honorably discharged, or and honorably separated from services is not eligible for receiving the credit under the RSA 7228 or RSA 7235. If adopted, this credit granted will be $500, the same as the standard for option veterans tax credit voted on the town under RSA 7228.
Question on that before we continue. Was honorably discharged, or fourth line down, or an officer honorably separated from services, that is not eligible. Why are we specifically calling out officer and not just, that would exclude enlisted men? Is that the language of the RSA?
Sometimes officers are separated from service and they're still subject to recall. Then
Correct, but I'm speaking,
discharged.
if we keep it as officer, then that eliminates all your enlisted rank, and I want to make sure that's not the
First part, I
intention.
think, takes care of the enlisted ones, honorably discharged.
Who served 90 days or more
Yeah.
on active service.
I still don't agree with that. I think I don't like the officer language. If that's what the way the RSA reads, then that's fine.
So do you want to have legal look at that one more time?
I would, yeah.
Any resident who served on active duty in the armed forces of the United States and was honorably discharged.
But then it
I mean, we do
specifies an
this.
officer.
We're doing
Some
this,
officers are not discharged, they are separated from service and subject to recall.
If that's the way the legal version is, then that's fine, but I just want clarification on that.
Clarification, just to make sure.
Because if I'm interpreting it as officers excluding enlisted men, then others will too, and that's why I think we need clarification. You can disagree with me all you want, but that's the way I feel on it.
Okay, so I get this nice little book about suggested warrant articles for DRA acceptance. And it says, was honorably discharged or an officer honorably separated from service and is not eligible for or receiving a credit under. I followed what they said.
So it's verbatim.
I can still disagree with the verbiage.
Of course you
but
can.
My
But we've
complaints.
been doing this right along, right?
No, no, no. This is the first time
This
you've
is a
seen the
different
all
one. This is a
veterans
different
credit.
Oh,
You
all
have-
veterans.
We've had the veterans
Okay.
credit for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But it's got different.
It's
Yeah.
not just all, it's veterans, I'm lucky enough to benefit from it, and the requirements were that you served during a time of war,
Yeah.
as designated by whoever. We certainly get in a lot of wars and conflicts along the way. But one of the things, and I'm not disagreeing with this, it does provide an opportunity for anybody who served when there wasn't a conflict to get this benefit. And officers are separated from service. So I understand your question, but it's correct.
If it's correct, then I apologize. It just,
No, you don't have to apologize.
The
It's
wording seems
easily
off.
misunderstood, yeah. Yeah, officers get enough benefits without having to. The question there was about a 21-year period between the Vietnam War and the Gulf War, which I think there was no identified conflict. There might have been a couple of skirmishes along the way, and you may qualify depending on what you did during that period of time, but about 21 years. And that's also, I believe the draft was eliminated after the Vietnam War, I think. So these people are volunteering to go into the service. I don't know if we ever indicated what the tax impact is on this. I hate to even bring it up, but there is we know what the amount is now that's being given out for the war service credits. But, is there any way feasible?
We have denied some, which is what brought this to light.
Pardon me?
We have denied some people that have applied
Oh, yeah.
because they're just out of a window, like you said,
Yeah,
of a
sure.
conflict.
But this is state law that changed, right? This isn't a town thing, is it?
No, I think the state law changed.
Yeah. The state, they changed the law to allow this, to encompass anybody who served.
Right, because we've had to deny a lot of people, which is unfortunate,
Yeah, I mean,
because of what we don't have.
Right,
Some
but this
of
is a
them
recent
come-
law, isn't it? This is a recent, fairly
Well, it's
recent-
right in the very front, so it's gotta be, it's right on, it says new.
yeah.
yeah, I mean, some of the ones were the ones that came looking for
Yeah, it
credit
says new.
prior to the actual declaration for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first
I know,
desert
I know.
storm.
Just a matter
Or
of
they
days,
served
yeah.
during
Yeah,
Grenada or served during, Panama, and
Yeah,
those
yeah.
weren't considered,
Yeah, I
those were,
understand, yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, or certain other skirmishes or police actions, I guess, is the politicians.
Well, we'd like to get involved with everything.
Yeah, so,
But is there a possible tax impact?
Is there a possible one? Sure. With, I don't know how many are out there, that's,
I know,
yeah.
so it's not possible.
No, I don't think it's possible to calculate. I know what you're asking for, but I don't know
have
if
to
we
look
can
at
do
all
it.
of them and how many get in the exemption and then figure it from there.
And then go,
I just soon stay away from it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't,
okay. Go to Article 21, expanded elderly exemption. To modify the provisions of 7239 for an elderly exemption for property tax in the town of Ware based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers be as follows. Person of 65 to 75, $90,000, 75 to 80, $120,000, and for a person 80 years or older, $400,000. To qualify, the person must have been a New Hampshire resident for at least 3 consecutive years, own real estate individually or jointly, or if the real estate is owned by such person's spouse, they must have been married to each other for at least 5 consecutive years. In addition, the taxpayer must have a net income of not more than $33,000, or if married, a combined net income of $44,000, and own net assets not in excess of $80,000, excluding the value of the person's residence.
do you wanna explain, do we need to explain why this came about?
I think so.
Okay. So, as we all know, we had a reevaluation. So, everybody's increase, across the board, we all shared the increase, but some of the people that are getting the elderly exemption went from a $25 bill to an $800 bill. And those people came in here mortified, in tears, because they can't pay it. So in speaking with Avatar, what typically happens is when you have such an increase as we've done between 40 and 60% in values, typically the town looks at expanding to allow the elderly, because they're as important to the community as anybody else is. So we don't want to ship them out of their homes, so we decided that we would increase it. And talking to Avatar, we didn't increase it by 40%, we took 30%, so that they still have a bill, but they still are able to stay and do it that way. That's where it came from.
Any questions for Article 21?
Can we do it for all
I asked that question too.
We have an all elderly exemption.
All veterans?
Yeah,
All elderly.
veterans, elderly, get them for both sides.
Yeah. All right, Article 22, cemetery trustees, delegate the duties and responsibilities of cemetery trustees to the Board of Selectmen. If approved, delegation shall take effect 90 days after the adoption and shall continue until rescinded by the vote of the town meeting.
So this has come to us as all of the trustees have resigned, even though we don't have any writing. We're still proceeding with one on the ballot, because one typically would be up this year. But it's been told to the town clerk and to myself that everybody resigned as of June 8th, but I don't have anything in writing. So, as part of life, we have to have somebody to take care of
Cemeteries.
working with the funeral homes when someone departs. So instead of leaving it and pointing the finger at someone, their RSA does allow for the selectmen to put on an article, and this is exactly what the RSA is, exactly the wording from the state RSA. Not ideal, but we still have to conduct business. So you will see one 3-year term on the ballot, but that person wasn't gonna run again, so.
So there's nobody actually that we...
So we don't have the actual 2 others that
right.
have resigned, which is Maureen's working on, but,
Right, but
it's
it'll be a
already-
position listed, but there'll probably be nobody under it unless somebody,
right,
yeah,
right.
okay. All right. Article 23, Code of Ethics, to see if the town will vote to reinstate the Ethics Committee abolished in 2014. The Ethics Committee implements the Code of Ethics, which was adopted in 2005. It was abolished due to lack of interest in serving on the committee. Been asked multiple times to reinstate it, so that's why this is here.
I'm not sure if that was the reason, but, yeah, it went away, died its slow death, I guess. But, going back in time and why it was done during that period of time was, before we had a person in the town government that, people didn't like the way they operated. And just, I think Naomi knows what I'm talking about. May rest in peace. So, and I think people were concerned at the time that it maybe it's going to rear its ugly head at some point in time. But I'm concerned that it's being resurfacing. It was, and I'm concerned about the timing of certain things that have happened during the course of the year, and the requests for the committee, people not being reappointed to boards and committees. I hope it's not being done for a particular, as a vindictive thing. But they say the devil's in the details. How are you going to form a committee? 'Cause, the first committee that was created, there was committee members were appointed, but their task during that first year was to create the guidelines and rules and regulations, whatever. And then they were going to start hiring, voting people in to fill positions staggered over a 3-year period. How will you, there's nothing in here that would indicate that
The formation.
this is going to be on the warrant for elected positions in next year or the year after. Are you appointing people to this? And if you are, I get a little nervous about that because they could be investigating you.
It's true.
So what's the purpose of this? What is it accomplishing at this point in time?
So we've had a request on a couple of occasions to reinstate this.
Right.
Motivation can be whatever you
Yeah,
want to
no
talk about.
problem.
Some people get upset and the answer is, let's reinstate the Code of Ethics because you're unethical. Okay? So that's come to us a couple of times. And in 2014, all we did was abolish the Ethics Committee.
Right.
What still stays is the actual Code of Ethics that they created and
Sure.
drafted.
Just like the code of conduct.
So that has 3 pages. That was adopted in '06 from the town, and it goes into the Code of Ethics, and then it talks about the implementation, formation, and things like that.
Right.
So the implementation is obviously, it's to educate officials, board members, and employees regarding provision of ethics code, provide advice and counsel to officials, board members, hear and resolve complaints that are filed against the board and employees of the town. The formation consists of 5 residents of the town of Weare. A quorum of 3 or more shall be necessary to hear any complaint. Initially, which I think we have to go back to because we don't have, the town moderator shall appoint 5 residents to serve on the Ethics Committee as follows: 1 member for a 1-year, 2 members for a 2-year, and 2 members for a 3-year. And then from there, you have to fill positions by elections on the ballot. And that's where we fell off because nobody ran for anything. They started it, they got this ethics code adopted, and then 2007, we were supposed to put it on the ballot, and we never did.
Yeah,
We never did.
did for the next 2, yeah.
So then we remembered it, I think, 1 or 2 years later, and it's one more thing for Maureen to have to remember is
Yeah, I
to,
understand.
and then as vacancies occur, and then pretty soon, nobody ran for anything. So then in 14, we drafted the article to
I
abolish
just don't want it
it.
to be a witch hunt, that's all. I mean, we're really
Well,
concerned
I
about
agree with you.
any appointments by anyone. And the town moderator is the one that first mentioned it, I believe, right after the vote. And I
I'm
believe
not
that-
sure she knew she had to appoint him, though.
Huh?
I'm not sure she
Oh,
knew
I
she had
doubt
to
it very
appoint.
much, but apparently that's the person that would make the appointment.
That's
is
what it was
the person
adopted
that
as.
had an issue.
Right.
So I even have a concern with that being. I'm not saying it wouldn't be done impartially, but there's a perception that it might not be. So.
Then you might have 6 people run for moderator.
There are 6 people running for moderator?
I said, then you might have 6 people that want to run for moderator. Pays $100 a year.
I don't know, I don't particularly care for this. I don't think we've had a need for it in the past. I don't know. It's a slippery slope, in my mind, really critical of who the people are. And they don't have any subpoena power. What if there was a complaint against a police officer? Is the union gonna let the police officer come over and be interviewed by a group of, there's no power, no authority there. And all I can do is air their concern and air their, whatever conclusion they came to. And it's so critical, not like a planning board and these, the people that are on there, it's a very, very partial group of professional people. I'm not saying they don't exist in town, but boy, you're really taking a risk, I think.
Tom?
I think what happened way back when was that we had a town administrator that preceded Naomi, who was not too much on the ball, actually. And that was the time period when this would have been implemented. And so it's simply, I don't think the positions were posted for the first few years at all, when he was the town administrator. And so then the whole thing just faded into the background, and then it got to the point, well, nobody's running. So that's when a motion was made to just discontinue the committee. Since then, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think I brought it up informally to Naomi a couple of times over the years prior to this. I'm not responsible for this one, but I do believe that it's a necessity because things do come up, and they have come up, and not just this year or last year, but over the last few years that should have required some attention like this, and it didn't get it.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, Article 24. Finance Committee change. Shall the town modify the Finance Committee ordinance by changing the second to last paragraph to read? Any member of the Finance Committee who seeks a local elected position on the Board of Selectmen or School Board shall be disqualified from serving on the Finance Committee during the duration of that year's budget discussions. The moderator shall be empowered to appoint a temporary replacement for that member during that time.
Doesn't need the question mark.
No, it doesn't need a question mark, no.
Well, I don't know how the last sentence reads that this refers to, second to the last paragraph. But I really agree with this, okay? And I remember back 22 years ago when I was on the Finance Committee, I thought there was similar language in there. And I never thought about it at the time, but I think about it now. There's really, it says, what is the time frame for a person to be disqualified? And when I say time frame, if the Finance Committee meets, when does this member have to decide that they want to run for an office? Are they going to decide? I don't know what the sign-up date, I think it's coming up.
Tomorrow. Starts tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. So if a person on the Finance Committee, I don't know when they first started meeting,
November.
month ago, okay? Does that person have to decide a month ahead of time that they want to run for an office and then be disqualified? There has to, and I don't have a suggestion in here, I just don't know. But there should be some time frame, and I guess I do have a suggestion. It may not satisfy what you folks are looking for, or the moderator is looking for, present moderator, but I would think a time frame is a person's decided to run for office tomorrow when they sign up. So I don't know if that is, clear in whatever the bylaws or the ordinance of the Finance Committee is, or if it needs, it should be included somehow. I mean, it's really unfair to ask somebody, a month ago, or a month and a half ago.
You run in.
To run, yeah.
I think the other part of it should be cleaned up, is it should be disqualified from serving during the duration of that year's budget discussion. If they're gonna be elected, they have a term for whether it be, for 3 years, so they're disqualified from being on that committee for the 3-year term, even if they
remainder
have,
of the term.
even if they're on there for,
Right,
appointed for 3 years, so it should be disqualified from serving, period.
okay, so then that means this allows them to be, which I
during
don't
that-
necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
It allows them to finish out the year, and when the finance committee votes,
It's the way I understand it, it's the
that-
duration of
Of that year.
that year, but if they're serving a 3-year term on the finance committee, which it could be, and they're elected to a 3-year term,
They
school
can't
board
elect
or the
and
one.
I
board of
can see-
selectmen,
and I can see using that as a time frame.
yeah, so I would say that for the period of time that they're serving in that other position, I would think would clean the language up a little bit,
But it came about largely because there's a lot of,
yeah, questions.
I think I can hear the checklist people. If somebody wants to be a supervisor of the checklist, they could sit on the finance committee. But, it's an elected position, so they'd have to get off the finance committee.
Okay,
The other thing this ordinance doesn't do is it doesn't behoove anybody from being an employee and sitting on there.
good point.
Doesn't
Excellent
say
point.
that. So I think I got another night. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, by
saying.
yourself,
Right, but you may not have another vote,
yeah.
Whatever.
or an appointment.
But you know what I mean?
Good point.
It was suggested that there may be others that wanted to get on, but when you say if you're gonna run for a position,
Yeah.
even though the position doesn't create a budget.
Right,
I mean, you can kick it around, you can take it off, you can do what you want, you know what I mean? It's not, to me, we've only seen it a couple of times.
as I say, I think we had that at the time, but I don't remember, when they were required to
Yeah,
resign.
once they put their name on the ballot, they typically get off the
To
finance.
be sure,
Right.
yeah, but by then, the finance committee may have already.
Or made
as you
decisions.
say-
Well, no, because it falls into place
I think it ought to be if
before
they-
they make the decisions.
Well,
What if they
right,
don't
they
win
have
the
to make it,
election?
yeah, for the
Yeah, it would
deliberative
fall
session.
into place prior, I mean, there wouldn't be any decisions or recommendations, they wouldn't
They've
be
heard
included
everything,
in
but
it.
they haven't recommended anything.
Right.
Well, that may be a safeguard. I don't know if it is the safeguard.
So I don't know if you leave it alone or what the answer is, but there is no, that behooves a employee from being on there.
The other issue with that is that they're running for reelection, they're not elected, so there's no conflict until they're elected.
Yeah, but it says here that,
You know, that's the thing, I mean,
Yeah, but
it
it's-
happens every day to run for,
it just who seeks a local elected office
Yeah.
shall be disqualified from
Sign up
serving
for
during the
election.
duration of
I,
that.
I know what you're saying, Jack, but I disagree. I think it's, like I said, if you put your name on the ballot, you disqualify yourself. from
Yeah, once you
fighting.
signed up, you're
It's all
off,
over.
you know.
If,
That's the one
successful or
trigger.
not.
I don't know, I agree, I kinda agree with Jack.
I mean,
I can
I-
run for anything, I'm in no budget, I'm in no position of making any
I've been-
changes,
I've
so.
been in that position once before. I was
agree with
elected
Jack
to
on
one
this one.
position, and I stayed on it until the other position I ran for was elected, and then I resigned the minute I won the election.
Until elected, I can
Yeah.
still be in
There's no
finance.
conflict.
Right.
That, I agree with Jack.
So do you
on
leave
that.
it alone?
Take it off.
I think
Take
you
it
open up a
off?
can of worms.
Reduces
Well,
it?
that-
I'm kinda
that may
thinking
not-
just eliminate 24.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my opinion. The way Jack is wording it makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, there's also the employee issue that's not being changed.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right.
Gonna
We're
remove,
gonna
Strike it.
remove, we're still down to the
We make-
same number.
We have to make a motion then? We
Yeah.
made a motion to add one.
yeah,
Tom?
yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Well, first, was Frank, were you done with your comment on that, or?
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry, Frank.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's just the way that it reads now, it eliminates people from some positions, like cemetery trustee. We have no cemetery trustees. You can't run for cemetery trustee and be on the finance committee. You can't run for trustee of the trust fund. You can't run for library trustee. All of these things that have very little or nothing to do with the budget process or the approval of warrant articles are automatically eliminated. So the purpose of this, I believe, was to narrow it down to the people who really have a say in the budgets, the school board members and the selectmen, and not eliminate everybody else from running. And so the language, I believe, you'd find is almost identical to that in the Finance Committee ordinance, except that instead of, say, having it running for office in general, it specifies these two positions because they're directly involved with preparing the budgets. So, you know, I think that changes, as you can see, you don't have any cemetery trustees. And how many others? We're lacking a trustee of the trust fund because the person moved away. And as of last week, they have nobody to run for that. And so it does eliminate the possibility here for really no good reason for those
On other
positions.
positions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Having served on a finance committee and left the finance committee because of a conflict, I think it's, I don't know how many people that serve on, that are elected or want to serve on the finance committee. I think it's, I don't think it's an issue. We've been doing this for, God, 20 years or more, or longer, where those rules have been in place, and I've not heard of any conflict or any people requesting that this be changed. There aren't that many other elected positions out there that, in my mind, that, also want to become on the finance. I just say, I would recommend leaving it alone. I don't think we're denying anybody an opportunity, really. They're already serving in an elected position, so they know what the rules are, so.
Right. Any comments from the board?
I still agree with Jack.
We want to strike it? Or we want to leave it?
I think strike it.
I think, yeah.
I'll entertain a motion either way.
Like I said, I think it adds a conflict because, there's other places and by law, you can run for one position. You can run and be on two different, you can be on a different committee that's elected. You can run for a position, and the minute you get elected, then you have to, but if you don't, you don't get elected, then why are you stepping away at that point? That's, you're kind of forcing somebody out the door to me,
Yeah, would stay and,
Right.
infringing maybe somewhat upon their right to try to seek office, and if they doesn't get it, so they stay where they're at. Then you've got to make the transition to appoint somebody, so,
All right. So what's the board want to
my
do?
opinion, anyway. I don't know what do you think, Johnny?
50/50.
I understand the intent of the article, but like you said,
I do too.
I don't know
but
if it holds
think
any weight.
yeah.
I make a motion, we strike Article 24 from the 2022 warrant article.
Been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second,
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
it's- Yes.
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 Yes. Abstentions? Noes?
Silence, crickets.
Abstain.
Abstention.
What was it?
One abstention.
No abstention.
Others in favor?
So the rest of the articles you're leaving alone? Forever now hold the peace.
Well,
Just add that other one.
we're gonna add one now.
Yeah, I know, so you're still gonna have 25.
Yep.
Gonna add one, we're gonna modify the Conservation
Do
Commission article.
do you have any other discussions? Because once I do it, that's gonna finish it up at DRA.
So this other article we're gonna add, are we gonna add it under 14?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna be
I gotta move
15
down
or
one,
whatever
too.
the heck it is.
Any other alterations?
Is there any changes you wanna,
Not that I can
I
see.
believe so.
Code of Ethics you wanna leave alone?
Board members?
Yeah, leave it as it says.
I would.
Yep.
Any other members want to change it? Once, twice sold?
So,
Mr. Chairman,
What?
before you close the meeting, would you allow me, I missed two items, you should be pretty quick.
Yeah.
Two articles, comments, two articles. The first article is the road reconstruction, and it's really just wording. I guess it's 15 for tonight. the wording is a little bit different from last year, and I think probably a couple of years before. I know I was involved, the instigator of an amendment with regard to show taxation. Last year's road reconstruction article, yeah, thought I had it. Well, I'll do my notes. If you read the one that's in front of you, where it says the balance, the remaining balance of approximately $294,098 to be added to the previously established road reconstruction fund. There should be a notation. I thought I was well prepared here. Right. Article 19 from last year, the same thing, 200, well, not the same numbers, but
The end of it is written differently.
248,850 to be raised by taxation. Just somehow make a note, just copy from last year and make the notation that, you know, that is going to be raised, because that is consistent. You know, somebody's going to say, well, what's the 23 cents? I know one of the board members will say, well, it's right there in front of you. Well, okay, you know, go the extra mile and say to be raised by taxation.
I don't think it would hurt to add that in there after fund.
I mean, it's,
No, all these still have to go to DRA and legal, so.
Yeah.
It should be the same as last year,
Yeah, I don't see why it shouldn't be, but
and years
Okay.
previous, yeah.
the only thing,
I just had after the parentheses dollar amount,
Original warrant for last year.
to
That was
be
cleaned up.
added to.
raised,
Or
well,
raised by
I had
taxation.
raised by taxation and
taxation.
added, or to add to, you know, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
already
there has
had
to
it.
be a correlation for the 23 cents.
Yeah, we got it.
And it has to be, it should be spelled out.
We got it.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay, thanks for that. And then the other thing is the veterans credit. I'm certainly, no way I could be opposed to it, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. But there is a tax impact. Again, I don't have a suggestion, and I don't know if it even can be done. Last year, it was, the tax impact was 16 cents. It was 196,700. And, you know, it would be nice in that article to indicate that there is a tax impact. Because that 196, even though I'm, you know, take advantage of the credit, I still have to make up a portion of my taxes to pay for that $196,000.
Right.
So, and that's fine. You
And
know, I understand
of course,
that.
that number's gonna be hard to figure out. 'cause
I know, it was already, it was
knows?
broached tonight. I just did the simple math, I guess it's the way to do it. That 196.7, I just divided it by $500, and I think it came to like 380 people.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Are
it
receiving
would
But is
be-
there, what you're looking at for the 196.7, is there a breakdown of a surviving spouse that gets $2,000 tax credit? So, I
no.
understand the common
Okay,
math,
I
but there
see.
may be,
Okay.
But there's got, I think,
because a surviving spouse of a veteran gets $2,000.
Oh, geez, don't tell that to my wife, please. Can you edit that out?
we're gonna send you a bill for the comedy now.
For as much as I disagree with some of the stuff you do, I appeal to you as not to let that information out. At least to Quaker Street, anyway. So maybe it's, you know, maybe it's something that can't be done. I mean,
That's a hard number to figure out.
right, it'd be a
I
hard
don't know if
number.
the
and-
military could give us that information.
No, and it would probably be a little unfair to say, just leave it as if there is a tax impact, or,
There's a
No,
tax impact, we're just unsure.
Yeah, we don't know what it's gonna be.
So-
Every year is different, because if you look at it, you can move into town, you know, for 5 years, and then all of a sudden you get a whole bunch of
You're,
them
you're
too.
good for it,
and it
yeah.
could go the other way, too. You know,
Right.
some of
Move out of
us, some
town.
of us
Some
are
of them
getting
become
older.
surviving spouses.
That's right.
Oh,
Before you move out of
And then they
town.
get more money.
so I guess that's probably an undoable
I think
thing
it
to
is,
have
yeah,
in there.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for tonight.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing
8:55.
at 8:55. What? That's not,
I
that,
asked about this.
that is not on the agenda,
No,
sir.
there's nothing.
So we passed this,
But
what's
we'll
the
let-
enforcement level?
We'll let you talk.
Thanks.
Yeah, anytime.
I just wonder what the intent of the board's enforcement
So,
level is.
what-
Is it treated as just a health concern where we're not enforcing trespassing, or are we going all the way with somebody's, I need to do town business and I'm gonna stay here till I get it done? Thank you very much.
We went to say non-confrontational.
Good enough, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Sir, thank you.
So we're hoping
Make a
we get-
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Before we do that, Naomi, are we all set now?
Yeah, because next Monday you're gonna meet for your public hearing for the DPW,
For the vehicle.
Vehicle. At the same time, I'll finish the warrant so you guys can sign it.
Okay.
And we also
I should-
got a whole bunch of minutes we need to get through.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's done two.
I got 2 of them today.
She's done 3 sets.
okay, I got 2.
6, the 20, and 27. The 6 had never been done either.
Okay, all right, I
You've
got
got
2.
those 3 to do. She's working on them. She's came back
Plus
today.
tonight's, so.
Yeah, it'll be a while. Right, we'll have plenty to
She
do.
can give us 2 or 3 next week,
You
Monday.
have 3 already.
Yeah,
Jared
we
did
have
them
3 a
today.
week, so we'll probably have 5 by the end of next week, at least, so. All right, if that's it, I just want to make sure you were all set with everything we had going on.
I heard a motion in a second.
I heard you calm down. Move second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Good night.
Have a good night, everyone, thank you.